person who everybody knew of, right? Like, I don't know if you ever had this happen to you. Like, when we first moved down here, I was shooting this video down in Safety Harbor. And I went down to shoot right on the harbor there, and I had this place picked out, this time picked out, and I was like, it's going to be quiet. I know what I'm getting into. I'm going to go shoot this video. And I got down there, and this dude shows up right as I'm starting to shoot the video, and he shows up, and he sits next to us, and he has this parrot on his shoulder, this green parrot. And the parrot talks through the entire video shoot, messes everything up, really. And the funny thing is, I told people about that afterwards. I was like, there's this guy with this parrot on his shoulder, and everybody was like, oh, the parrot guy? Oh yeah, everybody knows the parrot guy. Like in Safety Harbor, apparently he's a thing, like the parrot guy. Now nobody really knows his name, they don't know anything about him. He's well known, but he's not really known well, right? Like he's that kind of guy. And like we had a guy like this in one of the towns I lived in. And in Washington, we had this guy, and he was amazing. He had this job that was very, very noticeable. He was a sign holder. You know, like the guys that hold signs on the corner of the road? And he wasn't like a sign holder like, hey, this guy could be duplicated as a telephone post at any point, and you can just put the sign on the telephone post and not pay a guy for it. No. This guy was special. Like, he was an artist of holding a sign. And he wasn't the guy who, like, flips the sign and who was acrobatic with the sign. No. He didn't need that. He didn't need that. He wasn't all about the hype. He was about the job. And he held the sign, and he would always be at the same corner every single day. And he wore this purple polo shirt. I don't think it was part of the uniform. I think he just liked the purple polo shirt because he had a matching purple hat. And these black pants and black shoes. And he would come out early and he would stretch before before it was his time to go on. And he would stretch. He would actually sit in the grass and he would stretch out because you do not want to cramp up in the middle of sign holding. You know, this is an endurance game. And he would come out early, he would stretch, he would get his sign, and I'm pretty sure that it was saying, "We buy gold," you know? And he's holding this sign, and the thing was, it was like his job was just to hold the sign perfectly level while still moving his body as much as possible, but the sign never moves. And the sign would just stay still, but he would never give up. And it was like this waltz, and he would spin around. And it was this beautiful dance that he would do. Seriously, it would go on for hours, and everybody knew this guy. There are videos on YouTube of this guy, but I don't want to show you the videos because they don't do him justice. And he had this long ponytail that would flap in the breeze as he would hold the sign. And it was magical. And everybody started talking about the purple polo shirt guy. And everybody would be like, hey, have you driven by Bakerview in Cordata? That was the cross street. Have you driven by there? You seen the purple polo shirt guy? Because this guy's awesome. And everybody would be like, oh yeah, I saw him. You wouldn't believe what he was doing. I'm like, I would. Tell me what he was doing. Oh man, he was like dancing with the sign. It was so awesome. I was like, I know. If I was ever a sign holder, I want to be just like the purple polo shirt guy. It makes me want to go sell my gold to them. I mean, he was so good at what he did, and everybody knew who he was. And eventually, one day, he just disappeared. I don't know where he went. My hope is that he got swept up into a bigger market because he was too good for our little town. I was hoping he got to Seattle or San Francisco, somewhere where they would honor his skills appropriately, because he was too good for us. I mean, there was no doubt about it. But maybe you've seen people like this that everybody knows, they're well known, but nobody knows them well. And there's these people like that. And I want to talk about a guy who's in that position today. That everybody would be able to recognize him, everybody would see, they would look at him on a daily basis, but nobody really knew him. Nobody really saw him. They just kind of passed by him every single day. And maybe you know people like this, maybe you've seen people like this, and I want to talk about a guy specifically like that. As you know, we've been going through the book of Acts. If you're just joining us, the book of Acts is a book of how the church got started. This is the beginning of the church, the genesis of the church. When Jesus has left, and now he leaves these disciples there, and they're all on their own. And now they're trying to figure out and muddle together, how do we do this thing? What is it that Jesus called us to be? How do we act as a church, as a group of believers of Jesus? So they're trying to figure this out. And today is kind of a turning point in that story. This is like the first time that something else happens. There's a new chapter beginning in chapter 3. And in chapter 3, I want to pick up right there where Jesus has gone. He's left his disciples. He's left the power of the Holy Spirit with them. And Peter is walking into the temple. And this would be something Peter would do. Peter's walking into the temple. And it says this in Acts chapter 3. It says, one day, Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 in the afternoon. This was normal. This is what they would do. Peter and John are together. These are two of the disciples. They're walking together to the temple. Now, a man crippled from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. So there's a guy there. He's crippled. He has been his entire life. And he's brought to this specific location every single day. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's friends who bring him there. Could be people who honestly are taking a cut of his money that he has to pay to bring him there every single day. There's people that are bringing him there, and they're sitting him at this place, and it's called this Beautiful Gate. And there's a reason it's called the Beautiful Gate, because it was, in fact, beautiful. In fact, the historian Josephus, he tells us that this beautiful gate was 60 feet wide. It was a 60-foot wide gate. And it was, inside it was all bronze. It was very thick, very heavy, but the outside was completely covered in gold. And so you have this amazing display of this beautiful gate, and this contrast of right in front of it, a man who's probably not looked on very highly. He's crippled, which in this day wasn't just a handicap that was physical. Most people believed it was a spiritual handicap too. That God, you had done something, or your parents had done something, and now you're crippled because of what God was doing. And so he's sitting at this foot of this gate, probably not well groomed, probably not well bathed, probably not able to take care of himself very well. And he's sitting in front of this 60-foot wide golden gate. And they would sit him there every day so that people would take pity on him and give him money, right? They leave him there. Now, when he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. That's common, right? He saw them coming. He asked them for money. But Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, "Look at us. Look at us." And I don't know what Peter's trying to say here. Like, I don't know if Peter, first of all, is like the guy asks him for money, and Peter's like, "Dude, look at us. Like, we don't have anything." Like, seriously? Which could be the case. He could be saying that, like, man, you don't want to see this. But I have a feeling that Peter's trying to make eye contact with this guy. And see, people have been passing by him, and they've looked at him many, many times, but nobody's really seen him. Nobody's stopped and seen this man. And Peter stops and he makes eye contact. It says he looks directly at him. Then he says, "Look at us." Now, for guys, like, I don't know if you think about this moment, this is a really awkward moment. This is a long eye contact moment. Guys, we're not wired for this. Like, eye contact is really intimidating, right? Like, guys, I don't know if you ever noticed this. Like, I learned this when I was doing student ministries. And you're working with high school students, and you learn very quickly that girls, they can sit and have eye contact all day. This is great for them. They can go to a coffee shop, sit across a table, look at each other right in the eyes, and just talk. It's natural. It's normal for them. And they can actually do this for a very long time, I found out. I mean, this is very normal for them. Guys, not so much. It's very hard for us to sit across from another dude and just make eye contact and just, like, sit there and just talk. Right? Like, this moment is very awkward. I mean, this is why, guys, we like to be shoulder to shoulder working on something else, right? We like to be like, if we're working on a car, if we're playing a sport, if we're playing Xbox, we like to be shoulder to shoulder looking at something else. We will talk, but we like to be looking at something else, right? Like, that's how guys are wired. And this moment for guys, like, this is really intimidating, to have a moment where it's face-to-face, eye contact to eye contact. You're making eye contact. I mean, it's you know, I just picture them, like, sitting there staring at each other, and you just hear that, like, "Look into my eyes, you will see." It's like this beautiful moment between them, right? I mean, it's super awkward when somebody does that to you. However, we as humans crave eye contact. We actually do. Having eye contact with somebody else means that you have a connection with that person. In fact, they did a study just recently. This is a weird study, but they did a study just recently on cereal boxes specifically. But they were looking at things they were selling, at products they were selling. And they were saying, which ones sell better? And so they took, like, for instance, Trix cereal, you know, with that little white rabbit on there, that, you know, Trix are for kids rabbit. He's on the front. And they actually took two different boxes, and they made one that was specifically with the eyes pointed away from the person in front of them. So it wouldn't be looking at you, it would be looking away. Then they took a second box they made where it was looking directly at you, where the rabbit was looking directly at you. It was 5-1 that they outsold with the box that was looking at you, with this rabbit looking at you, because they've actually found that we crave eye contact. We actually want it. And why do we want it? It's because it's when we feel like we've been seen. We know you see us when you're looking at us, right? This is why when we lie, we avoid eye contact, right? Because we don't want you to see us. We don't want you to see through us. We don't want you to see the motivations. We don't want you to see what we're really thinking. So we avoid eye contact. But there's actually studies that say that you will make eye contact more frequently with people you respect, with people that you honor, with people who are in authority to you. You will make eye contact with them more often because you want them to see you. You want them to notice you. And Peter has this moment where he says, look at me. I know a lot of people have walked by here. I know a lot of people have looked at you, but I see you. I actually see you as a person. And he recognizes him and he humanizes him in that moment. Says, look at me. And the man, it says, he looks at him. He does look back at him. But it says, so the man gave him his attention, expecting to get something from them. Now, what is he expecting to get? So this man's expecting, so he does look at him. He looks back at him. He makes eye contact with him. What is he expecting to get back from him? Now, the obvious answer is probably money, right? He's expecting some kind of money to come back his way. And so he makes eye contact with him. He looks back at him. And he's expecting something very simple. What he's expecting is what he wants. But Peter looks beyond that, and Peter gives him what he needs. I don't know how cool you were in middle school. I was not. Whatever cool was, I was the opposite of the cool in middle school. And I was in this awesome class that was just designed to make you a dork called Music Appreciation. Did anybody take Music Appreciation? And it was like we need a class to teach us to appreciate music. Like, we don't naturally. There aren't like millions of radio stations out there playing it all day long or other ways to get a hold of it. Like, we need a class to say, no, you should appreciate music. And so I took this class, and I thought I was going to be really cool. And I was in this class with this other kid, and he was telling me about, one day we all got to bring in like our own songs, right? And we got to bring in music we liked. And this kid was in my class, and he was like into old school rock and roll, and he was like, and he had brought in this record, or this tape, because I was a cassette tape kid. And he brought in this tape, and he played this song, and it was by the Rolling Stones. And I was like, what is this? Like, I grew up in a very sheltered pastor's household, and this was a secular band. And only if you grew up in pastors' households do you even know the word secular. And I was like, it's a secular band, and they play rock and roll and guitars. And I was like, tell me more about this magic. And so I took this, so I went and I actually went and smuggled a tape of the Rolling Stones. And I turned it on, and I'd heard about this song. I'd heard a little bit of the clip of this song. And I brought some friends over, and I was like, guys, check out this tape I got. It's the Rolling Stones. And this song's like the cool one. It's the cool one. It's called You Can't Always Get What You Want. And so my friends were there, and I hit play on my little boombox. I hit play, and this is what it starts with if you're not familiar with the song. It goes like this. Do we have that, Wesley? I didn't know this was the beginning of the song. It was like checking the cassette tape thing, like, is this the right tape? I got a children's choir tape? I hate Music Appreciation. I will never appreciate music. They totally let me down. And this is what my friends were hearing. They're looking at me like, you gotta be kidding. You brought us over here to hear this? Yeah, I think it gets better, but I'm really not sure. And that's what I played for my friends. It was a really awesome moment for me. It's awesome being in middle school. And I played this song for them, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's cooler. And it did. It got cooler, but I think by then I'd already, like, whatever street cred I was trying to gain, I'd already lost. It was over. They're like, yeah, Kevin got the children's version of Rolling Stones. It's like the Rolling Pebbles or something.
Kids Bop.
And it's like Kids Bop, but like one or something. I mean, it's old. Yeah, and so anyways, but if you know that song, you know the immortal words of Mick Jagger that say, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. It's good to repeat yourself sometimes. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. Right? And that's this thing where this man expects one thing from Peter. And he asks one thing of Peter and John, but what he gets is not what he wants. He gets what he needs. And Peter, it says, from there, he reaches down and he grabs the man by the hand, which this isn't a big move. He actually touches a man who's probably been untouchable for a very long time. A man who hasn't had human contact in a long time. And it says, taking him by the right hand, he helped him up. And instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk. Then he went with him into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. And I got to imagine that this is Peter's first miracle. See, this is the tipping point. This is the changing point where the power of Jesus is now within the disciples. The power of the Holy Spirit now resides within them. And so they are now the ones doing miracles. And you got to think Peter's got to be a nervous wreck. This is his first miracle. And he's got to be sitting there thinking like, oh no, okay, I don't want to mess this up. Because there are people that are writing about this apparently, so I need to do this well. And he's probably thinking like, what would Jesus do in this situation? What would Jesus do?
What would you
make a bracelet? So I can remind myself, what would Jesus do? And so he's thinking, what would Jesus do? He's probably a nervous wreck, but he doesn't just stand there. He doesn't just say the words. He could just say the words, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk. He could just say it, but he doesn't just say it. He does what Jesus would do, and he actually gets his hands physically, literally dirty, and he reaches down and he helps the man up. And as he brings the man to his feet, the man gets stronger. And the miracle is happening right in front of him. And I got to think that Peter's like halfway like a nervous wreck. Like, I think this is happening. I think this is happening. But part of him's got to be like, this is awesome. This is awesome. Exactly what Jesus said was going to happen is happening. It's all really happening. And this man rises to his feet as Peter helps him by the hand. And then notice what he does after that. He humanizes him by seeing him. He recognizes his issue and pulls him out of it. And then he doesn't just leave him there. He doesn't just say, well, you're healed now, so good luck, dude. He goes with them into the temple courts. He's now a part of them. They don't just leave him there. He goes as community with them into these courts. They invite him in. They take him into the temple courts, and then he went in, he's walking and jumping and praising God. Of course he is, right? He's pumped. And then it says that once they got inside, that all these people see him. All these people are aware of who he is. And look, when all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him. They now saw him the way that Peter saw him. They didn't just look at him and walk by. They saw him. They recognized him. And praising God, they recognized him, the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. See, this wouldn't have happened if Peter would have just stopped with what he wanted. If he would have just given him silver or gold, it would have been a very short story. And really not one that's that exciting. But he saw what he needed. And he went beyond what he wanted to what he needed. And I think sometimes we in the church spend so much time worrying about trying to be what people want that we miss the opportunity to be what people need. We're so worried about trying to be what people want us to be and the way people want us to be, especially the people that are already in it. We're so worried about trying to be what people want us to be that we miss the opportunity to say, no, we can be what people need us to be. Because we have this power of Jesus Christ that is a life-changing, a life-giving power that flows in and through the church. And we could be what people want us to be. We could be the shiny things, the silver, the gold, the beautiful gates. But then we want to be what people need us to be. there's this theologian, his name's St. Thomas Aquinas. Maybe you've heard of him if you've studied anything biblically, and especially if you're from the Catholic tradition. He was a big-time guy in the 13th century. He was a theologian that really was unmarked. I mean, he was just unbelievable what he did. And he was kind of a reformist even in the Catholic Church. And this was before the Vatican that we have now. This is before St. Peter's Cathedral that's now in Rome. This was before those days. But they had still built their first Vatican. The Catholic Church had created the first Vatican. It was beautiful. It was well put together. It was gorgeous. And St. Thomas Aquinas, this young man at the time, came to visit the Pope. And they walked through this enormous building together. And the Pope, his name was Pope Innocent, and Pope Innocent walked him through. They walked together through this enormous cathedral, through these beautiful hallways, through these massive doorways. And the Pope turned around to St. Thomas, and he said to him, he said, "No longer can we say, 'Silver and gold, we have none.'" And St. Thomas said back to him, "Maybe that's why we can no longer say that in the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk." Maybe we become what people want too much instead of what people need. What our community needs us to be. I was thinking about this yesterday as we were serving, and we were out in the community, doing work, working on yards, working on pressure washing things. I know Wayne's sore today from this. I'm sure Thomas. I mean, it was a long day of work, and it was awesome. And I noticed, first of all, one of the things I was thinking about as I was thinking about this message is like one of the things I love about Diane Bracy is she sees people. She sees she doesn't just look at them and walk by, she sees them and sees needs, and she figures out how to meet those. And she had seen these needs, and as we're working in these yards, working in people's houses, and people are literally in tears telling us how grateful they are that people would take time out of their weekends to come do this for them. I'm thinking, this is what people need. They don't need a church that's catering to all the people who are in the churches once. They need people who are saying, no, what are your needs? We recognize you. We humanize you. We help you up by the hand, and we walk with you in community. And so maybe today you're in a spot where you have one of two things. Maybe you're in a spot where you need to be on the side of not worrying about what people want you to be, but worrying about what people need and looking for those needs in your community. Maybe it's looking for needs right next to you in your own house, in your own family. Maybe those are the needs you need to be looking at. But maybe on the flip side of that, maybe you're a person today who needs to just be seen and people to care about you, and we want to do that. And there are a few ways we can do that. There's one where, I'll be around afterwards. I'm happy to stick around and pray with you, to talk with you about whatever it is that you have going on. There's also, right there on the Connect card that you have, there's a prayer request line. We do pray for those every single week, and if there's something that we can pray for you about, we'd love to partner with you. But more than that, we'd actually love to get involved and help. And so if there's something that you need, please tell us. You can tell us not just a prayer request, but a prayer action step of here's how you can help my community, my friends, my family in this time, actually getting involved. But as we think about that this week, we're going to sing a song about that. And maybe it's for you, this is a come as you are for you, saying I need to come as I am with whatever mess I bring and let people serve me, let people see me for the first time. Or maybe you're on the flip side of that where you need to hear these words and think about it on the other side of there are people who are hurting that I need to be the person that they come to. And I need to be aware of them and looking for them. If you would, let's stand together. We're going to pray. God, I thank you so much for this time. Thank you so much for this word. And God, as we look at what this moment is in Acts 3, God, I thank you so much for Peter's boldness. I thank you so much for the disciples who were willing to take steps of faith in this moment. And God, I pray that we would take steps of faith today too. I thank you so much for the church that you're creating us to be. And just the people that you're creating us to be, this community that you're creating us to be. And God, continue to use us, continue to work in and through us on a daily, on a weekly, on an hourly basis, God, in and through us. God, I thank you so much for the people in this room. I thank you so much for the gifts and the abilities and the talents they possess. God, show them how they can meet needs, not just wants, but needs through what you've gifted them with. God, I just thank you so much that you're a God who's so big that you can still heal, that you can still change lives. And God, if we would just allow you to, that you would do that in our midst. And so God, I pray that for the times we need to get out of the way and let you do what you can do, that we would do that as well. So God, this week, work in and through and even in spite of us as a body of believers and as individuals. Praise things you